Should be working. Okay, got it?
Yeah. Yes, I got it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to part 2 of my interview with Dr. Marwa Osman on 1+1, your place for inconvenient truth-telling and myth-busting. And we're talking about cancel culture, the real censorship that's going on, and we were talking about Russian-Ukrainian affairs, and we're joined by Dr. Marwa Osman, who's a Lebanese university professor, host of Mideastream on Press TV. You would think me, who actually watches your program, would know how to pronounce it, but
trust me, I have the same problem with the gentleman in the control room. They always say it wrong, and I have to correct it before we start. But it's just out of good intention. Don't worry.
Okay, so now you were saying. Okay, so we were talking about in part 1 before Zoom, randomly decided to disconnect us. so you were saying about Alexander Dugin. So he's not this crazy eccentric far right.
Look, don't let the audience take my word for it. Always, this is what I tell my students: do your own research. And when you do your own research as a researcher, or even as a normal person who's trying to find out more about things, diversify your sources. Don't look into mainstream media alone. And I think that throughout the experience that you have gone through over the years, you are sure there are certain issues that the mainstream media will push towards, will try to manipulate the audience towards it, and you should just try to find the truth somewhere else. And the truth always is found with the people of the land, with the natives. Ask the people, talk to the people. And we are in, it's the world wide web, so you can connect with anyone. Just do your research, and you'll find out that most of what you hear on the mainstream media is in fact simply untrue.
Not only that, but sometimes as a leftist, sometimes even the best left-leaning outlets get it completely wrong, and also for whatever reasons, they either have imperial blind spots, or whoever is paying their bills, so some kind of wealthy donors.
So a lot of left reporters who were against Syria at the beginning of the war on Syria, but then after things started to get clear for them, sadly, that meant a lot of lives were lost, whether in Syria or whether trying to flee the global war in Syria. And after they had the chance to come visit and see for themselves, they changed their mind. But I mean, for us, it's too late.
Exactly, and that's why sometimes when people say to me that, like, oh, you need to be watching Democracy Now. Oh, what about Al Jazeera? And I say to them, whoa, guys, hold on. If you're gonna judge, if you're gonna judge RT, if you're gonna judge anything Russian by its cover, or you say you can't trust Chinese media, or yours truly Press TV because it's Iranian state-funded media, then I say to them, well, then you need to be consistent, and you can't really trust Al Jazeera, which is Qatari-funded media. And then when I point out to people about how, Qatar's role in the dirty war on Syria, exporting ISIS.
The issue is you don't even have to point it out, Youri, because if you just get interviews by the former foreign ministry of Qatar with him saying we tried to take over Syria, and with a very denigrating tone, he says that the prey ran away. He literally said, تهاوشنا على الصيدة والصيدة فلتت منا, which means we fought over the prey and the prey ran away. That's what Syria is for tiny Qatar, Syria, the 20,000-year-old Syria. That's what it ended up being, a soundbite for the ex-foreign minister of Qatar, and it's
unbelievable. But now going back before we talk about other cancel cultures, Israel, Palestine, and even your own Press TV, which I'm afraid is going to face again more renewed harassment. So you were saying about Alexander Dugin's daughter who was murdered, that she was a very bright student, had her whole life ahead of her. But you were saying something very interesting about how she proudly identified as an Orthodox Christian woman, and talk about that because you were saying something very interesting.
She was assassinated right when she returned to Moscow, and when she was in the outskirts of the city with family and friends, and you can see that on her Facebook page, celebrating a family tradition gathering.
Yeah.
As a fundamental part of the Orthodox elderly and protecting the family unit, and with whatever it this is what Dugina, with her father and with a group of her friends and colleagues, and she was assassinated just as she left that ceremony, where she stayed for 3 days, if I'm not mistaken. And the issue is the hypocrisy of the media, and especially the hypocrisy of media personas who portray themselves as seekers of liberty and defenders of human rights and freedom of speech and freedom of expression, who never said a word about the oppression against Julian Assange, but were celebrating, and if not celebrating the assassination of Daria, they were basically saying that we don't care. It's not of our concern that a young 20-something woman would be assassinated, blown up in her own car, while coming back from a family traditional ceremony, only because she has different views and she has a different opinion on what's going on in her own country.
Yeah.
So that gives you a great, prospect and a great maybe view of how Western values work within the journalism aspect, and within the lies and hypocrisy of those who call for freedom of speech and freedom of expression and human rights. I mean, this is the gravest violation of any right for a human to express themselves. And you see them either not caring, celebrating, or just simply moving on.
Unbelievable. And, that's a perfect segue to actually, before we get into Israel and Palestine, you're mentioning how she was a proud Orthodox woman, and now I'm an atheist, and I'm an atheist. I am very much a secularist. But that being said, that does not mean that I'm a liberal bigot. So when I see
that you have every right to be proud of who you are and of what you follow in your life, or what represents. I have a right to be a Muslim, a practicing Muslim woman, to be a hijabi woman. I mean, now as oppressed women, because I choose to cover up, I'm oppressed. Trust me, if you know the men in my family, you know that they need a lawyer to defend their rights of freedom of speech and expression. That's not only a joke, by the way, but to tell you that, I mean, I had a fight with my parents, Youri, when I was 19, to wear the hijab. They didn't want to allow me to wear the hijab. I was like, that's my right. You're denying me my right. But they were only afraid that I might not get a job in a country like Lebanon, believe it or not, because it is very much discriminatory against hijabi women. And I decided that I'm going to be the boss of myself. I'm going to pursue the education that I see fit. And I'm going to be a free woman to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And this is who I am. And I am a Muslim Shia proud woman who have roamed the world, and I'm not planning on roaming the United States of America, because I know that I will be harassed and disrespected, and if I'm harassed and disrespected, people are not gonna like my reaction.
You might you might want to also avoid France, or you might want to also avoid Quebec in Canada, the French-speaking province.
Because
this gets
into Paris at some point, and I had a conference in Paris, and I was awarded presented an award for journalism. I published a research paper about Muslim Brotherhood. Basically, it's about fundamentalism and political Islam. And when I was in Europe, I was actually harassed by a Wahhabi, supposedly Muslim, because I don't accept the form Wahhabism with Islam, but that's just me. I was harassed by a Wahhabi man because I was on the subway at 9 p.m. returning from dinner after the conference back to my hotel, and the man was doing this. He wanted to behead me because I'm a woman alone on a subway going back to my hotel room. I was harassed by the people who were killing me back in my home. I was harassed by the people who were attempting
that's
to
unbelievable.
put explosions in Beirut and kill us all because they are extremist fundamentalist terrorists. But they're in Europe now.
But that's that's fascinating in and of itself because again, like as me, who is secular, who is atheist, and yes, like I know all the George Carlin routines when it comes to making fun of religion, stuff like that. But there is such a thing as liberal bigotry, and I think it's and I recently was watching a documentary about Egypt, where exactly like like he said, those who are those who choose to wear the to wear the headscarf, the hijab, and we're not talking about the burqa, we're just talking about the
simple
hijab
covering the head. Yes, I've seen the documentary that you're talking about, and just 2 days ago there was a tweet that went viral from Jordan about a Jordanian nurse who was fired because of her modest garment as a nurse, because a new director was appointed to the hospital where she works, and he gave her a choice between wearing what he thinks is suitable for the hospital to treat patients and what she believes in, and she decided to take the second option, and she tweeted about it. You can find the tweet on Twitter, and trust me, there are a lot of Arab Islamic nations that they are not defined in the constitution as Islamic, but there are majorly Muslim Arab countries that oppress women who wear the hijab and who would not want to see them in leading positions in the government. I myself applied for a position when I was just a first-year master's student in 2007 to become part of the Security General Department in Lebanon, and I was accepted. And when it was time to sign the contract, one of the contracts stated that I need to remove my hijab. And I just didn't do that. I was not gonna approve.
That's crazy. And then of course in France, when we talk about liberal bigotry, you have France. Anytime there are Muslim women wearing the hijab, they're constantly harassed. They're told they can't. They're told their children and so forth cannot wear it into any schools, and that's if they really want to wear it, that they have to go to an Islamic school. But it's like, look, we are devout Muslims, but we want like our kids to be with the rest of the children. We want them to be integrated in society. But
exactly, integrated society, because how I look should not be. But in the West, how you look, if you're not a Muslim, is okay. If you're a man who decides to become a woman and wear, like the case of, I think it was Toronto, if I'm not mistaken, of a teacher who was wearing exaggerated breasts under his garment, and you should read about it. And there was protests in front of the school. The man was wearing something out of a Halloween costume, and he says, it's my right to look the way that I am. And
wow.
Yeah, that's okay, but you're not allowed to be modest in your wardrobe and your garment, and you're not allowed to cover your hair. But at the same time, look, I could, despite the fact that I do not respect it or condone it, but I might understand from where these extreme right wingers are coming from. I might understand their viewpoint, despite the fact that I don't agree with it. But what I don't understand is banning the burkini, banning women to cover up when they swim. I mean, how do people go diving in France? Or if it's raining outside, is it banning people? If it's like
Well,
February, are you
and yeah,
ban
and
people to
yeah,
go down to the beach
and
and
then
take a walk on
and
the beach because they're wearing their clothes? I mean, it's ridiculous.
yes, and in Quebec they basically have like a total ban. So so basically anyone in Quebec who wears who wears the yarmulke, a Sikh person who wears the turban, or a Muslim woman who wears the hijab, they're not allowed to work in any public sector jobs. Now they've amended the rule in which, okay, if it's an English speaking job, an English speaking school, you can get away with it. And I just find it so stupid. I find people should be allowed to, practice their culture. It's a whole other thing when it comes to, oh, anyways, like, no, we don't even have to go through this stupid
Yeah,
conversation because,
exactly.
like,
And this is what I want to tell you, Yuri, because this is pre-planned. Nothing that comes out in the mainstream media is not planned and is not according to a project and a schedule. Because they'd rather we fight and debate this than actually talk about free healthcare, free education, about saving and protecting the notion of a family, the unit. We're not supposed to talk about that. We're supposed to bicker and to fight over who wears what and who looks like. Who cares? You could wear wherever you want. I could wear wherever I want, but let's have free healthcare. Let's not die in hospitals because we don't have money to pay for our medical treatment. Let's have equal opportunity in schools. Let's allow our communities to progress, just like Cuba. And I was in Cuba just 2 months ago, and it was it was the most amazing trip that I taken in my life. And the way these people are building and have been building their community is an inspiration, despite the suffocating unilateral punitive measures against the whole nation of Cuba.
I completely agree with you on that, and it breaks my heart. I don't know if you know this. There's a really good left wing organization called the Socialist Workers Party. I got the chance to visit one of their meetings when I was visiting friends in London, but uh, they really got under my skin because they had a speaker at their Marxism festival talking about how Cuba is not socialist.
What? Have they been to Cuba?
Like, anywho, that and like, yeah, that pissed me off. I remember like complaining to Arnold August about it and like saying like, wow,
I was
effing
inspired
F,
by
F,
the Cuban
effing Westerners.
yeah, I was inspired by the Cuban uh, um, basically experience, because despite the the heavy pressure that they have been under since 1959, uh, they were still able to build their communities. They were still able to give free healthcare and free education for all. They were still able to give free public transportation for their people. They were still able to have a doctor for every 100 person, a family doctor. They were still able to give free food for the people who cannot afford to buy food, despite the fact that every month, every individual in Cuba is allowed a portion of necessities from the government for free to be able to survive with these sanctions. And at the same time, everyone has a job, because it's a system that creates basically efficient way of dealing with public institutions. And now recently they've even opened up to private institutions as well, with a certain margin, because it's a socialist state. So I don't understand where they're coming from, but or maybe I
Oh,
do,
it's this.
because we've tested their IQ on several matters, and they failed to live up to it.
Well, I can briefly respond to that before we talk about Israel Palestine and that cancel culture. I think what happens in the West, there's this there's this Western Marxist movement called Trotskyism, and these are people who do believe in Marxist Leninism, but they particularly believe in the Marxist theory and whatnot of Leon Trotsky, who fled the Soviet Union when Stalin got into power. He's a martyr that movement and for democratic socialist because he was murdered by the dictator Stalin and stuff like that. Now this movement, there are two trends of it. So there are those who are basically anti-communist leftists. So they have to so they constantly have to criticize the former USSR, the Warsaw Pact, the Vietnamese states, the North Korean states, the Chinese states, and even the Cuban state, because they're all Stalinists, they're all, tyrannical. It wasn't really the workers that were in control over their destiny. It was this small bureaucratic elite. And of course, they always, reference, George Orwell's, Animal Farm 1984, and that makes them a scholar on, Eastern Europe and like Russian affairs. And now there are some who, who do overcompensate too much criticizing the USSR, but they do defend each government's right to self-determination and are very, very much anti-imperialist and want to try to unite the working class. Although sometimes
that's the last string that we have, because if they give up on that, they become liberals.
Exactly. And with that, but the problem with that is because of this anti-communist leftism, this is where you get this very annoying trend of people who Cuba's under attack by the powers to be and so forth. And when there are protests in the streets, these people feel the need that, okay, I'm against U.S. imperialism, but I want the Cubans to overthrow this tyrannical regime. So therefore, we need to criticize both sides. This is why people are completely messed up on all things Ukraine, because they hate Putin because he's a right-winger, but they can't side with NATO. So what they have to say, so they make up stuff like, we need to criticize both sides. This is an inter-imperialist war.
They are afraid of the cancel culture. They are afraid to be sidelined and considered a Kremlin bot or a Khamenei troll or whatever the word that is. Or I could always get accused of getting millions of rials from Iran, and millions of rials are actually less than $1. So that's very funny because, and I ended up making a meme with my very, very good friend, Professor Tim Anderson. We put Dr. Evil with that thing and 1 million rials, and it's less than $1. It's very funny because they're that much uninformed and uneducated. But the issue is, that's the difference between natives, Youri, and people who are on the sideline, who support our cause, but with an if and with a condition. The issue is we have really passed this phase.
Yeah.
Support. We don't really need anyone's support if that support is going to come conditional. If you have a condition for me, to accept my cause and to support my cause, then don't come. We really don't need it. We were fully capable of eliminating occupation and neocolonialism. We can. The only thing that we need is for you to back off. Stop criticizing us. You want to criticize our choices while we are under sanctions, while we are being bombed, while our resources are. At the end of the day, you want us to say, no, I don't see your point. Keep your opinion to yourself if you're going to butt into what I'm choosing inside my own sovereign state. And if you don't like it, find a wall, bang your head to it. That's all.
No, exactly. And this, and and like, yeah, it's so annoying when you talk to Western leftists sometimes, because you would think that they would have known by now that, like, even if even if the Syrian government is not 100% this wonderful leftist regime, even if there are some democratic deficits within the Cuban system, or take Iran for example. Yes, Iran is a theocracy. I'm not a fan of the of the theocracy, but the fact of the matter is this: the imperialists, the Western imperialists, will always find a weak spot. They'll always find legitimate grievances that the people have. They'll exploit those legitimate grievances. But then what happens in the end of the day is the imperialists, the American-led, British, Canadian, French, pan-European imperialists, their agenda gets, gets advanced. And what happens is, well, we've seen what happens with Afghanistan. If the communist, movement was allowed to flourish and get rid of the reactionary, Wahhabi conservative Islamists, who knows what would have happened with Afghanistan? But no, the Western imperialists, they exploited that. They exploited the human rights abuses that did take place under that communist system. But then they propped up the most reactionary forces, which was the Mujahideen, later the Taliban. And you see the same thing, with Syria. The powers.
You're breaking up a lot, Youri. I
Okay, wait, one moment.
that good, but can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, and I have a weak internet connection right now. That's my problem. Is the internet on my part?
To another internet.
Okay. No, I think your internet's fine. It's my internet that seems to be having a that it's. Okay, yeah. Wait, one moment. Okay, the signal's getting a little bit better. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah,
I completely see what you're saying, and I understand.
So Syria, for example.
But you know what my problem is, Youri, is that my problem that these people who identify as left, as socialists, they don't understand sovereignty. They don't understand that relations between countries are based on agreements and on bilateral benefit and interest, which means that what your role should be is, as a leftist, is to denounce and to condemn any form of hegemony, of neocolonialism and imperialism against any other nation, even if that nation has a totalitarian system, because that system should be dealt with the people in that country. What I mean, when Mahsa Amini's case was propagated as being a case that every Iranian is calling for her headscarf to be removed, the issue is, for me, as a non-Iranian who would not accept anyone to, as I would not accept anyone to order me to wear. As a Lebanese, not an Iranian, I cannot speak on behalf of Iranian women, but I know a lot of my Iranian women friends who support their government, who support the revolution, the Shah, the puppet of the West. But I just tweeted one small thing about it, is that Iran is a democracy. It has election, it has a parliament, people choose their representatives. Why not let the people, if the people have a problem with that law, they should demand from their representatives to change that law. I just spoke what should be spoken by anyone looking from the outside, and I was attacked and harassed online beyond even normally.
But how is it? But how is it that we know that that Iran is targeted by the West, and the West, obviously they don't give a shit about theocracy in Iran, because otherwise they would not be supporting
Saudi Arabia.
Not only that, but they wouldn't be supporting ISIS death squads in Syria, Libya, and and so like that. But how is it that once upon a time it was way easier to convince people to say no war on Iran and condemn the murder of General Soleimani, but now
to your career, they will get to your job, they will get to the circle of friends, they will intimidate you into making your community believe that you are an outsider, that you are a conspiracy theorist, that you are working against what they believe in, against their community values, when at the same time we as humans share the same values. We all want to live in peace, we all want to have a secure job,
Yes.
energy and clean environment. We all want to have our government use the taxes that we pay properly by giving us free healthcare and free education. Every human on this earth want this, and if they say they don't want this, they are a hypocrite, and they are basically just serving an agenda of the elite, of the bureaucratic, of the oligarchy. But when you ask why are we at this point in time, is that because they have seen what happened, truth, and who support, and the without the conditions. I mean, look at what they have our circle of friends in as reporters. Look to what Dr. Tim Anderson had suffered as a of speech, and the courts that he had to endure despite. Look at what's happening with Laith Ma'roof, a Canadian, a Palestinian, a Syrian Canadian, who basically supports the freedom of his Levant, of his country. He supports Syria, he supports Palestine. He's not allowed to say that he supports that, and now he's taking his accusers to court, because that's what he should be doing. We should all be supporting him, and I would appeal to your audience to help us fund the campaign of Laith Ma'roof in this upcoming court battle, because we know that this battle will go to the Supreme Court, and we know this will be a precedent in Canadian law and in Canadian legal system and system of justice. And we need to support him in every way that we can, because it's not allowed to tell people don't talk about this, or if you talk about this, you're anti-Semite. You're accusing us of being anti-Semite, and we are Semites, but you don't know because you're uneducated. You're accusing us of mockery against our colonial occupiers. We have every right to mock them. We have every right to talk against them. We have every right to expose them. Then you want us to see our children dying like Rayan Sulaiman yesterday in Bethlehem, died of fear, 7-year-old kid. I have a 7-year-old kid. I would kill whoever would intimidate her. You want us to sit aside and just take it with a smile that you want to kill us, you want to kill our children, you want to take our resources, you want to take our land, you want to kick us out of our land and just smile and nod? No.
Exactly. In fact, actually, my friend Eve Angler, a frequent guest on this program, he hosts a program, the Canadian Foreign Policy Hour, which I often attend to, and he definitely defended Laith's rights of free speech. He said, like, yes, there were some things he tweeted which obviously I don't condemn, but this has nothing to do with that. This has everything to do with the fact that, like, the powers to be want to shut any criticism that people have
because he's
on
naming
Israel.
it as it is, because he's saying white Jewish colonial settlers. Aren't they white? Aren't they Jewish? Aren't they colonial settlers? Then we're not making this up.
And we have to talk about this, because that's the real cancel culture. The real cancel culture is we are not allowed to say anything about Israel. I remember going to school, and all of us had to walk on eggshells when the topic of Israel came about. None of us could say Israel was a racist state. None of us could say that Zionism was a racist ideology. And of course, now I would never compare what Israel does to Nazism. If Jewish people want to make that comparison, I'll let them do that. But even to compare Israel to apartheid, even to compare Israel to.
If it's the truth, then we should not be afraid of saying it. Why is it okay for us to say that those who claim for themselves to be Muslims and then they follow the Daesh phenomena terrorizing the public wherever they want to create their Islamic State are terrorists, but I'm not allowed to say that the people who claim they are Jewish and they want to oppress other people through Zionism are not terrorists. Why? It's the truth. There are Jewish people who are fighting the fight of Palestine more than many other Arabs and Muslims around the world. Then why not support these people? Why not stand with these people? Just like I would stand with them and I would wait for them to stand with me and support me if a Christian Zionist or a Muslim Zionist, because we have a lot of them right here in West Asia, or a Jewish Zionist would want to create an apartheid regime that is built on annihilation, on genocide, and on looting and killing native Palestinians, that I will stand up and say it as it is. We should not be afraid of using terminology as it is. But I do understand that we should also not deny the atrocities that happened in history against a large amount of Jews who were in Europe.
But nobody's denying that. See, this is the problem with it.
But there are some pro-Palestinian people who would lose that debate when they go there. Why would I say it? In fact, I would say it was not only Jews that were persecuted by the Nazis. There were also millions of Russians, of Soviet Union Russians. There were millions of Eastern Europeans who were Christians and Muslims at that time because they stood against that Nazi regime. But people would tend to make that what happened during World War II was only subjected to one specific group of people. That's not reality. Russia, the Soviet Union, lost 22 million humans in the fight against Nazism. And
I'm pretty sure China lost even more, because we also don't talk about the Japanese, Japanese Nazism and whatnot. But it's stunning because right now it's not just your friend Laith who's under attack and who's subjected to real cancel culture, but you had the Zionists and the Israel lobby. They're trying to pass a law globally called the IHRA definition of anti-Zionism. So this is the International Holocaust Alliance, something like that. And okay, so they literally say that if you say that Israel was founded as a racist colonial state, that's anti-Semitic. If you and I'm sorry,
I don't understand what the International Holocaust Remembrance Committee has to do with, which actually speaks about the atrocities that the Jews endured under Hitler, has to do with what the Zionists are doing to the Palestinian people in the Levant. This is two separate issues.
They claim that this is we know it's BS when they use the anti-Semitism card, but they basically say that we can't criticize we can't criticize how Israel was founded. We can't compare it to we can't compare what Israel does to the Palestinians to settler colonial states of Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and and the United States, and then even right now, even the right to BDS, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. So there are university campuses, I know for a fact, across Turtle Island, from Canada to the U.S., where basically Palestinians, those who are part of the Palestinian diaspora, and those who stand in solidarity with Palestine, are basically being told to shut up. You're not allowed to air any of your grievances. You cannot call out the racist system that your people live under. And that, to me, that's the real cancel culture. But Mr. Belmarsh, all of those other, liberal, celebrities of the United States, they don't speak out against that. And that to me really gets under my skin. And then just recently, before we started this call, I was watching that, Katie Halper, who's this comedian and journalist, in the United States, does a lot of very good, left-wing programs. She's Jewish herself. She's a Jewish anti-Zionist, and she was talking about how Israel is an apartheid state, and she was censored by The Hill, which is this corporate news outlet, which has a popular YouTube program which appeals to left audience. And yeah, she was censored from arguing how Israel's an apartheid state, and was later fired from from The Hill. And yeah, Breakthrough News has aired her segment. And
The British, uh, the British actress and comedian Miriam Margolyes, who's always under attack for supporting Palestine against the atrocities committed by the Zionists. Susan Sarandon, you can the actor who plays uh, also has been under attack several times for supporting the Palestinian cause, or for simply just talking about atrocities that happen, like killing teenage boys on the shores of Gaza because they were playing football. Or, for example, like yesterday, running after a young 7-year-old boy who was running literally for his life, to a point that he climbs a roof, but they follow him up there and he jumps to save himself. Little boy, they ended up scaring that little boy until his death. And you're not allowed to talk about that, because why? Because they happen to be of a Jewish descent. But I don't recall the Jewish religion allowing such atrocities or allowing such murderous behavior. This is Zionism.
Yeah.
Religion. And I don't need to keep on saying that all the time, because if people would like to listen to me from the first time, they're welcome. If not, it's their problem. I have a lot of very important issues to fight, and specifically the struggle to my liberation and the liberation of my people. And I don't need any Westerner, whoever that Westerner is, to tell me where I should go or not, what should I talk about or not, because I know my limits. Even in our struggle, we are moral people with high values, and we have proven that by liberating our land and never even never even yelling at the treacherous agents of the Zionists, the Lebanese one who remained in Lebanon. We decided we move on. We just don't confront them. The liberation process that happened in Lebanon at the hands of Lebanese men is a school for liberation. Not allow anyone to come at us and teach us what to do or what to say. You either come, live here, live through the atrocities, and then make up your mind, or don't just sit out across seas and oceans and educate us, and that you would not be insulted by. If you're insulted, it's your problem, not mine.
And that's a perfect. Anyways, yes. Je suis Katie Halper, je suis BDS, je suis Palestine Solidarity, and je suis Laith. Je suis RT, Soapbox, all of those Russian outlets, the Chinese ones, and Press TV. Perfect segue. My second to last thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is talk to us about Press TV and how Press TV has always, been this has always been subjected to cancel culture. Can you talk to us about that? And while we talk about people being people being canceled and people even being murdered, can you talk to us about the legacy, the memory of of your colleague? I hope I'm not butchering her name. Serena Shem, right? Yes. Can you so talk to us about the history of press?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm having my internet is really shitty today. So so yeah, talk to us about press. Yeah, so talk to us about Press TV and how they've had to overcome cancel culture and Serena Shem.
Well, basically, when you see that Press TV is not allowed to go on satellites in Europe and in North America, the basic question would be why? Why are you afraid of a TV channel that is broadcasting from the area which you, as imperial powers, continue to loot, bomb, and try to control? Because you don't want the public to hear from the natives of that land. Press TV is always under attack. You see the website along with 36 other websites from 36 other local and regional TV channels and news websites being attacked by none other than the, I think, if I recall well, it was the FBI. And later on, you see that Press TV is not allowed to, it's canceled from the mainstream social media platforms like Facebook. It had more than 4 million followers when it was shut down. They're not allowed to be on YouTube. Their YouTube channel was canceled as well. That was suspended. On Twitter, we face a lot of pressure on Twitter. Also on Instagram, the basically now what the area where we feel a bit safe is Telegram up until now. We don't know what's going to happen later on. But when you're attacked on all of these platforms and you get left supporters who say, well, you know, it's the Valley, Silicon Valley, it's these corporate. Why don't have to be on there? Really? We don't have to be there. That's the only platform where the world is operating. We don't have to be there. If we would be sure that the world would come and listen to us on our own platforms, we'd have done that a long time ago. But we know that our platforms are banned from Europe and North America, and that the major corporations, which is why these major corporations should be managed by international law. They should abide to international law, because even if it is a private company, as a citizen of this world, I have every right to have a view and an opinion on it, and they cannot ban me from it. And that's what the left is not understanding, that you don't, you claim that I need to abide by certain community standards. What community standards? That there is a protected segment. You should, and people should read the rules of Twitter. What is the protected segment? Who are we talking about? Exactly. Need that the oligarchy or the elite need to be protected from. We, the public, have every right to speak about wherever we find necessary to try to lift the atrocities that our communities are living through, to try to liberate ourselves for the simple right of self-determination and sovereignty. But this is basically what we have been going through from cancel culture concerning Press TV. But we know at Press TV that we should not stop. We should continue with our struggle. And this is what we're doing. And we still grow on a daily basis because of the alliances that we do with alternative media, and because the friends that we find on there, especially with Latin America, especially with the global South in specific, because we share a lot of calamities, atrocities, and problems that are caused by the imperial West. But with remembering our own Serena Shem, at the time that Serena was murdered in southern Turkey, I was a newscast. I was an anchor in the news bulletin Al Atijah English news channel. I was still not a Press TV producer and anchor, a presenter back then, but I knew Serena. We used to work together before she worked with Press TV, and it was a devastating news because Serena was afraid for her life. She spoke 2 days earlier about that twice during Skype links with Press TV, telling Press TV that she's being followed, that people are asking the hotel where she lives, where she's residing, and the neighborhood where she's residing about her, and she's afraid that she might be maybe targeted because of the footage that she has of WHO, World Health Organization, promoting terrorists in the town on the Turkish border. And she had that footage, and the hard disk where that footage was on was taken from the car that Serena ended up Wow. Her cousin, who was her producer with her direct cousin, was in the same car crash. She just had a scratch we were taking to do two different hospitals, and Serena was alive after the accident, and she was alive and moving, and we were taking to two separate hospitals, and then I got the news that Serena was did not survive, and she had doubts about it. Press TV had doubts about it, and they issued a lot of requests to the Turkish authorities to look into it. But I mean, look at the rates of imprisonment of journalists and lawyers and teachers in Turkey. I mean, it's understandable that they would not want to investigate this, if not implicated themselves in this.
Yeah.
Sadly, Serena was taken from her family and from her colleagues, but we know that she passed away doing what she had passion about, what she loved. She was telling the truth. She was telling the world that international organizations were aiding terrorists to wreak havoc in Syria. And I know that she would not have loved to go in any other way than this, telling the truth, doing her job. So salute to her, to her family, and to our colleagues across the Levant and West Asia, where they are doing a great job despite the risk and despite the basically threats that come from the hegemony of the West.
Je suis Press TV and je suis Serena, and may she rest in peace. And as my friend Robert Eggington says about the passing of Aboriginal people, may their campfires burn forever. And last
Mind
thing I
you, I
want,
should add something
yes,
that Serena is a U.S. citizen. She's a Lebanese U.S. citizen, and the U.S. never asked for investigation for the murder of Serena Shim.
unbelievable. And then the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is the protests in Iran, and again, so we don't have to rehash my stance on the on the Islamic Republic of Iran, but just just explain to an audience to an audience which I hope my audience is are all are all anti-imperialist and whatnot, and just explain to an anti-war and anti-imperialist audience that even if you don't like the current regime in Iran, why we should not be supporting Western efforts into overthrowing the regime, and that we should be very weary of the powers to be who weaponize again legitimate grievances like the need for secularism, the need for feminism, the need for queer liberation. Why we should not be supporting Canada, Britain, and the U.S.'s efforts into overthrowing the regime in Iran, even if we condemn what happened to the woman who was killed for not wearing a
Uh,
hijab and so forth.
on that says, Mamated,
Oh,
haven't you seen to have
actually, Mark, can you
you
repeat
haven't
that again?
died? Yeah,
Can
if
you
you
repeat that again?
seen who have already died, look at past experiences. Meaning that if I want to put myself in the shoes of these Westerners who are doing as you say, I would ask them one question. Do you believe what the administrations of the imperial powers of the West tell you at all times? If the answer is no, then the benefit of the doubt should be given to the Iranian government in that area and should be allowed to become a point of research for us before we take an opinion and a side in it. What I mean, in the case of Mahsa Amini, first of all, the lady had chronic diseases, and I did an episode about it. I'm sorry I haven't uploaded it yet. It was hectic because we started the semesters in two different universities, so I'm
Yeah.
uploading it tonight, inshallah. But with the case of Mahsa Amini, Mahsa, she had chronic disease, was
Hmm.
5 years old, and she might have been under a lot of pressure when she was arrested by the police, as would any other young woman would feel in such a situation. And she was taken to the precinct, to the station, for signing some papers and for getting enrolled in a class that would teach her why this law is important. That's according to Iranian law. What happened is, as the footage was released by the Iranian police, the lady was in shock. She had a sudden a sudden pain in her head. She grabbed her head, she fell on the ground, but she had walked in the precinct on her own. She sat down for at least half an hour, and then she was taken immediately to the hospital, where she had heart failure, and then she was pronounced.
Okay.
So she had already previous health conditions that would have happened to a male Iranian if he had the same conditions that he had, if he was pressured by going, if you were stopped, Youri, while driving because of a certain speed limit, you would get pressurized, you would get nervous if you are taking downtown to the precinct. Any one of us would be. And it's a tragedy that a young woman like Mahsa would lose her life like this. But this has nothing to do with all the reports that were allegedly reported about in mainstream media just hours after the passing of this young lady, without any investigation taking place. The same thing that has happened in every other country that the US is against, always. Chemical attack, it's the Syrian government who did it. Where's the investigation? The Syrian government asked the OPCW and the UN to send in the experts to investigate. Crickets, no one came in. But with Iran, I mean, it started with that. And then what you don't see in the mainstream media is that the father of Mahsa Amini gave a statement to the media saying that we do not accept or condone anything that's going on in the name of our daughter, because it's wrong what's happening. You had members of the Iranian government visiting the family of Mahsa Amini, promising investigation. The president himself promised a clear and honest investigation. And the coronary result, the primary coronary results, was that Mahsa Amini had no signs of abuse on her body, especially post-mortem. So, which would definitely be clear, since her arrest and her death were very imminent. They happened on the same day. So they don't want to report about that. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about how the authorities in Iran made it clear that if a wrongdoing was actually the case of Mahsa Amini's death, that they will take full responsibility and they would hold accountable whoever was part of it. They havoc being wreaked in Iran. And another proof would be, if Israel is standing with rioters, with protesters who turned into rioters, who cut the throats of police officers, and who tried to beat up women, and then claim that the authorities are doing it. If the Israelis are standing with those, then take 2 to 3 steps back, my friends, and reconsider your options and reconsider your choices and where you stand. And if you look, I mean, despite the fact that it cannot be really compared due to various variables and differences, but look at January 6, 2020 in Washington. And then look at the rioters and the terrorism that was acted upon people who are trying to bring back order and security in Iran by police officers who don't have guns.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have guns. Had they had guns like the US does, which, by the way, the statistics talk about more than 1,000 deaths at the hands of police officers in the US only in 2020.
Yeah.
They would have danced in celebration over what happened, but they don't even have the proof to back up their claims. And when you put those statistics up in their faces about the United States, about the system of incarceration, African Americans in the United States of America.
Yeah, indigenous people too. Yeah.
not only being racist or discriminatory against them, even with the use of ill power by the police, by using their power in the United States. You're not allowed to talk about that. Or if you talk about that, you say that's irrelevant to what's happening. No, that's not irrelevant. That's directly what's happening, especially when you have rioters burning the Quran, burning headscarves, deciding that they want to see the supreme leader dead, saying that the Iranian revolution is a hoax. It's not backed by the public. Really, it's not backed by the public. It's a revolution that took more than 11 years to occur, that had a referendum, and that since then had several presidencies, and you still don't believe that it's a valid revolution. It's your problem.
But well, it sounds to me as if it's this classic case of imperialists weaponizing half truths. So yes, there are people who don't like. There are people who would like Iran to be a secular republic, and so
It's
the
not
half.
up to them. It's up to the public to vote it in.
Yes, but so it sounds to me as if so this woman was taken to a police station because of a misunderstanding
Not
about
wearing hijab properly according to Iranian law.
okay, but then but where it gets into propaganda. So yes, she was yes, she was in a police facility about that. But where it becomes all propaganda is that she was murdered by the Iranian authorities and stuff like that, right?
But it's not looked upon as if similar laws exist in the West. I mean, where does it stop? I mean, it's a law because it's an Islamic republic. It's in there in the title. It's an Islamic
Yeah,
republic. Recent exposure law in the West. Isn't that the same?
exactly.
Debate me. Isn't that the same?
Well, yes, but where I'm trying to get at is that it sounds to me as if, well, we all know once an investigation gets underway, but it sounds to me as if she was not personally murdered by the Iranian authorities. It sounds to me
Absolutely.
as if like she had epilepsy, she had
Yeah.
and
She had she was suffering from a chronic disease since she was 5 years old, and that's not me saying it. That's her father saying it,
yeah,
with him presenting evidence, and with the government also presenting evidence of her tragic passing away because of that chronic disease. But no, just as you said, the West would always look at a certain point that is a weak point in their enemy, and they, because had it not been Mahsa Amini, it would have been a male who was maybe against another law in Iran. But look, you could look at the riots of 2009 and see how many Iranians passed away because of these rioters. And you could look at how Western ambassadors part in many of those protests in 2009, and he was then kicked out of Iran because of this. Can you imagine if the Iranian ambassador was on board January 6th protests? Oh my God. But
well,
it's
and I
okay
and
for
yeah,
ambassadors of West to take part in riots in a country where they should be respecting the law of that country because they are representing their own country as ambassadors. But no, it's like Western exceptionalism and Western supremacy over natives and the majority of the public. They like democracy only when it works for their own benefit. But when the people of a certain nation would vote for and would accept a form of government that is not very good looking for the West, then it's bad. It's not a democracy. It's a theocracy. People don't have liberties. They don't have freedom of expression. I'm pretty sure they've never set foot in Iran to know how much liberated the Iranian women are. And again, it's not up for me to say because I'm Lebanese. Don't believe me. Apply for a visa, go visit the country.
yeah, and I and I think in closing, I also just want to say to like people that like guys, uh, every time Western imperialists get involved in whatever protests that are taking place, whatever uprisings that are taking place, the end result has always been more reactionary politics. So even if the current Iranian government gets ousted, I know for a fact it's not going to be, a Marxist left-wing government that's secular and feminist and is queer liberationist in nature. It's going to be the MEK or some other, or even if it was secular, it's going to be some capitalist, puppet to the powers that be. And I've lived through Syria, Libya, what happened in Ukraine, what goes on in Haiti, even my mother's own country of the Congo, to know that anytime the imperialists get involved in whatever protests and whatever legitimate grievances that are being aired, more reactionary nonsense gets pushed. But on that note, because we've gone over time due to all of our internet connection problems, we were joined on this edition of 1+1 with Dr. Marwa Osman, Lebanese University professor and host of Mideastream or Midstream on the Press TV. Marwa, let's have you back on in 2 months from now, because there's so much more I would like to discuss with you. And solidarity to the people at Press TV who I know are going to get the real cancel culture, raining down on their heads. And Je suis BDS and Je suis Palestine solidarity. So solidarity to all of those Palestinian voices and Jewish-Anti-Zionist voices that get canceled. And I wish you the best of weekends and hope to have you on very soon in the future.
Thank you, Youri, for having me and for allowing me to express my thoughts and opinion about everything that we have spoken about. And I wish you the best on your show, and I wish your audience the best as well. And salute from me right here from South Lebanon, on the border with soon-to-be liberated Palestine and soon-to-be liberated Golan.
Power to the people, death to settler colonialism and imperialism.